Hey guys, it's Sam, and today I'm going to talk about my 2024 reading goals. So my reading goals have not been super extreme, like for years. I tend to stick to the same things, but this is just sort of re-clarifying what I want to work on and how I'm going to do that. So I will always set my reading goal for 52 books a year. That's always going to be the thing, just to give myself some flexibility of like, no matter how busy my life gets, I always want to read at least a book a week. I tend to average out about 75 books a year though. But I'm never going to set my goal for that in case other things start taking priority in my life. If you remember from last year, I was trying to get my TBR basically down to 0. I did not get my TBR to 0, but I made a really decent chunk in it in a way that I'm like pretty happy with. I would still like it to be like a little bit lower, but it just kind of got away from me last year. So this year is going to be, again, a refocusing on that. If you remember partway through last year, I ended up taking some books off of the TBR because a lot of things I have to reread books to then catch up with the books that are the continuations of series on my TBR. And so it was adding a lot of additional books that weren't even just the TBR books to my TBR. So I ended up taking off some of those to get to 46 books, like by mid-year, that were on my physical TBR. I ended up reading 33 and DNFing 4. So of the 46 that were on my shelf at the beginning of the year, I read 37 of them. So I only had like 9 left in that like final number. Now, of course, I had some of the like stretch goal ones that I had taken off, but overall, again, fine with that. For my TBR goals for this year, it's a little better than last year. I think last year I had like started out with something like 50 something books, including like the rereads I had to do. This year I have 41 books on my TBR as of the 1st. I have to read an additional 8 for rereads to get to these books too, which I do kind of want to do this year. So again, this is where we start to run into issues. I'm essentially reading, of the 75 books I will likely read, 50 are TBR books or like reread things. But that is what I'm hoping to do, is to at least get, I don't know, if I get down to where I just have like 10 books at the end of the year that were like still like kind of what I did last year, although then I got some more books, whatever. As long as I'm reading the books that I have on my shelf, like sort of within the year, 2-year mark, like that's all fine. I keep saying it's get to 0, and I might. I wouldn't mind. That'd be fine. Again, having a TBR, physical TBR of like 10 books, especially when I'm using the library so much, doesn't bother me. So that's what I'm kind of doing for my physical TBR stuff. And I do want to work on some series, but I mentioned in my stats video that I actually statistically, with how the percentages go, even though it felt like I read less series this year, I mean, I only finished 5, and in 2022 I finished 10 or 11. But that's just because of the difference in how many books I read both years. But the actual percentages are equal as far as like how many books in like series and stuff that I finished. But I am still trying to like catch up on series. I think a lot of my series that are currently ongoing are caught up, but like finish out existing series is still like a thing that I want to prioritize. And then specifically a few series I'm like zoning in on to be like, get it done. So with that being said, for the first half of the year, because I break my goals into the 6-month mark. So as far as keeping up my traction, I want to continue with the Live Ship Traders, which I just read the first book in December, and read The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb. I would ideally like to finish this series this year, so read this in the first half of the year, read the last book in the second half. But I have to read this one first for the first half. Then I want to reread Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. I really want to continue with Stormlight. I've had the second book on my shelf since I finished this one in like 2020. It's been long enough that now I'm forgetting things, so I kind of want to reread this on audio. And then get into the second book. Again, probably second half of the year. But there are a lot of people doing sort of like Cosmere read-alongs or like Stormlight read-alongs. So I might try to like power through with people. But I think it's very unrealistic of me to say that I'm going to try to read like all 4 or 5 books in the Cosmere this year. Like these are 1,000 pages. Like that's all I'll read then. Not all, but like it'll be a decent chunk and will impede other things. So I sort of just want to get the second book off my shelf this year. Maybe read, like, generally besides this, reread 1 Stormlight book a year. Chug on through. I don't think I read any Sanderson last year. So, yeah. Reread Way of Kings. Then I want to be a little bit better about my new releases when I get something from a publisher that I really wanted or that I requested. I don't do it a lot. I usually, like, throughout the year have, like, maybe 10 books. But because of that, I want to finish the 2023 arcs that I was sent. So I'm currently already doing this. There's 4 on my shelf. Currently reading A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. I got this as an arc. got scared and I didn't read it all year, but like, we're trying, we're going for it. I figured reading that honker at the beginning of the year was like a way to get into it, because it's like, you got time. You're off work for like a week. Do it. Then the other books are Shield Maiden by Sharon Emmerich. Emmerich's? I don't actually know how to say her name. And this is a feminist retelling of Beowulf. Can't wait. You guys know how I feel about the, like, you know, Circe, Kakai, whatever. It's like in that same vein. Speaking of that, staying on theme, we have The Weaver and the Witch Queen by Genevieve Gornichek. She wrote The Witch's Heart, which is one of my favorite books of 2022. And this is taking place in like Viking Age history and mythology. Amazing. And then one that just came out at the end of 2023, but I still want to read it ASAP because, again, I just want to get the arcs from the previous year off my shelf. The Dragons of Deepwood Fen by Bradley Baleo. Very excited about this. Bradley Baleo wrote The 12 Kings and Shirakai, which is a series that I really want to catch up on this year, and this is his newest book, which is, again, dragons. There's thieves, there's inquisitors, there's all the dragon stuff with, like, political machinations. I'm into it. Then I have 2 2024 arcs that I want to finish before they come out in February. So I want to read these, like, again, ASAP, either this month or next month. First is Bride by Allie Hazelwood. This is a vampire bride and an alpha werewolf romance. Yes, why not? I'm interested in what she's going to do, since she tends to write contemporary and, like, the STEM stuff. This is very different. But, like, I want me a trashy paranormal romance. I do. Then we have Projections by S.E. Porter. This is so good. It's sort of like a gothic horror thing where our main character is murdered, but her ghost gets attached to her murderer, and then like he's sort of like being like a serial killer, like almost like a Jack the Ripper-esque like character, and so she is going to try to find a way to like stop him from her afterlife. Very excited about this. So yeah, those are all the arcs that I want to get finished, but, you know, ones that already came out and then ones that are about to come out, so I'm not like just piling up things that are like, oh, this came out last year. I want to be reading the new releases as I'm getting them. Then in the name of continuing series, I want to reread First Sister by Lyndon A. Lewis so I can read Second Revel by Lyndon A. Lewis. This is a series I really like. I'm just forgetting some parts of this one, but this is a really fast read. It's sci-fi before I get into the second one, which I have on my shelf. So yeah, those are all the goals that I have for the first half of the year. I do also want to potentially either read the Hugos if the Hugo shortlist is like decent this year, or I might switch to, I think the Ignite is the one that's most closely aligned with my interests and things. Slightly more diverse list usually too. I might switch to another awards besides the Hugos, even though the Hugos still intrigue me. But yeah, because just this year's Hugo reading was just like, I say all the time, but I missed the BookTube SFF Awards because I feel like I read some favorites in there when we were doing that. But yeah, I think seeking out a slightly different list than what the Hugos tend to go for, a more curated list might be good. But I haven't quite decided on that yet. I might talk more about that like second half of the year, because I think a lot of the awards come out like sort of second half of the year. So comment below, let me know what your goals are for 2024. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.